Hello and welcome to a special edition of Earth911's Sustainability in Your Ear. This is the podcast conversation about accelerating the transition to a sustainable carbon neutral society. And today we are replaying a live event from Climate Week in New York. I'm your host, Mitch Ratcliffe. Thanks for joining in. Climate Week, a national gathering of the people, nonprofits, companies, and communities driving the green transition, takes place each year during the week when the United Nations General Assembly meets in New York. Our regular guest, Newday Impact CEO Doug Heske, invited me to moderate the announcement of a new approach to quantifying the ecological impact of a project or a company. In other words, how that human activity can create biodiversity, improved air and water quality, soil health, and social equity. The Ecological Benefits Framework is a new platform for sharing that information. It was developed by the Lexicon, an environmental action studio led by Douglas Gayeton, and you'll hear from him shortly. The Ecological Benefits Framework, or EBF as you will hear it referred to during the event, extends the reporting that we know as ESG, the controversial environmental, social, and governance reporting that is increasingly required of companies by regulators around the world. What the EBF does is add double materiality. That combines the financial risk a company faces from its own actions that the regulators are already asking them for, with the environmental consequences, good and bad, of those actions. In other words, it doesn't just count profits and losses, it quantifies the environmental change produced by an organization. That full spectrum view of our options as investors, shoppers, and citizens is the basis for a comprehensive conversation about reorienting humanity's relationship with nature to ensure long-term environmental improvements. We met in New York with an audience, along with our recent guest, model and activist Georgie Bedell, who explained her project to eliminate water scarcity in Burkina Faso. With the new Ecological Benefits Framework, the Georgie Bedell Foundation will be able to easily convey to funders the difference in human and environmental outcomes made by the installation of its women-built and managed community wells. The Ecological Benefits Framework may eventually reach you at the retail store or e-commerce site where you shop. You would be able to easily see and understand using visual icons that tell you what facets of nature benefit from a product or a project, asking you to buy it or for a donation. So let's go to the event, which happened at the corner of 43rd and Broadway on Tuesday, September 20th, 2023. Let's go live to the show.
All right, well, so thank you everyone for coming. Welcome to this event. We are very excited to be putting this event on today. I'm particularly excited because selfishly, this is my favorite restaurant in New York, and many of the people in this room are my favorite people, and this restaurant serves one of my favorite dishes ever, which you have to try if it comes by, the shrimp and avocado slider. I could live on those things, so highly recommended if there's any left. That's the selfish part over with. So I am Dan Keeler. I am the Chief Communications Officer at Newday, among other things. And when I first encountered Doug, it was when Newday came into the Wall Street Journal. I was the Frontier Markets editor at the Wall Street Journal. And they came in to pitch a new product that they created, which was a super innovative, retail-facing product for people that wanted to invest in impact, but who didn't have hundreds of millions of dollars like the foundations and the big funds. At the time, it's about 5 years ago, it was surprisingly unusual to be able to do that. There wasn't really much opportunity for individuals to invest for impact, genuinely. They came to me because I was the person at the Wall Street Journal that actually knew what impact investing was. The rest of the people on the news team were sort of like, oh no, impact investing, don't really know what it is. So they came to me. I thought of it as being one of the most interesting areas of investment. It overlapped very closely with frontier markets, which are small emerging markets. Many of the firms that I was seeing investing, many of the funds that I was seeing investing were not just investing for a profit. They were investing because they believed in what they were doing. They had a purpose. So when I met Doug, he explained their product. He explained it well enough that I immediately went out, downloaded the app, and put some money into it, and was very happy with that. Very happy with the results. But we also kept in touch over the years. So that's about 5 years ago. We stayed in touch probably once a year or so, we'd meet up and have lunch or breakfast. And we always talked about possibly working together, despite the fact that I was very happy at the Wall Street Journal, had no desire to leave at that point. Then we met in June this year, I think it was, and somehow the stars had aligned. I was building a portfolio career, and Doug said, well, can we possibly slot Newday into that portfolio? And so we did. And here I am as head of communications, working with Newday on a bunch of initiatives as well. And one of those initiatives, which is super exciting, is what we're going to be talking about tonight. So one of the first meetings that Doug brought me into, once I started working with Newday, was with Douglas Gayeton, who is the founder of the Lexicon organization. And the meeting was to discuss something called the Ecological Benefits Framework. Now, it is not overstating it to say that I got goosebumps when Douglas started explaining EBF to me, because I was so frustrated, I have been so frustrated over the years, with how difficult it is to really assess impact on a sort of level playing field, a sort of equal framework. So, we've had ESG, we've had the SDGs, we've had all of these different ways of assessing impact, measuring impact, or attempting to measure impact, and it's all been a bit flawed. And the way that Douglas explained EBF to me really kind of opened the possibility that maybe that problem's been solved now. So that's what we're going to be talking about this evening. And that's why I think Doug got so excited about EBF, and why he has really gone all in with Newday into working with Douglas and the team to integrate EBF as a concept and as a framework into the investing process. So they'll be telling you about that later on. So we'll have Douglas and Doug will both be explaining that, which I think you'll find fascinating. One of the other unique things about Newday is its partnerships with impact leaders. This is one of the things that I was impressed with Doug when I first met him, and it's been consistent ever since. They've got very close relationships with some key impact leaders. One of those impact leaders is Georgie Badil, and she is actually going to be with us tonight and talking about the relationship between Newday and the Georgie Badil Foundation, which I think is an amazing opportunity to learn about some of the work that both Newday is doing and the work that the Georgie Badil Foundation is doing, which is tremendous. So thank you for coming. Looking forward to that part. We also, obviously, we are an investment firm. We want to go through a little bit of the nuts and bolts about how EBF works in an investment environment. So we're going to have Matthew Zimmer talk to us. He's on our investment team. He'll talk to us briefly just about how Newday is overlaying the investment process with EBF and using EBF to create a more robust measurement and assessment of the impact of the investments that we're making. Finally, you won't have me talking to you at all from now on, because we've actually got an MC for the evening, which is Mitch Ratcliffe. He is the CEO of Earth911. You may be familiar with Earth911. They've done many podcasts, I think with Doug. You've done a few. Georgie, I think you've done a couple of podcasts with them. Fantastic work. If you haven't checked out the podcast, you should, because they're really, really good. And he's just told me that Earth911 is also the world's biggest database for recycling and reuse and recycling. With no more ado, I hand you over to our MC for the evening, Mitch Ratcliffe.
I've got it. Well, we have been talking a lot as a society about ESG, and it's being politicized, it's being defined. We know that the International Sustainability Standards Board has decided that single materiality, which concentrates on the fiduciary impact of what a company does with regard to social and environmental activities, is going to be the standard that they're going to push forward this fall. But that doesn't cover the actual impact that the feeling the Earth has when we act upon it. And what we're doing today, as Dan just explained, is introducing the Ecological Benefits Framework, which is a way to publish and share that information in a comparable way in order to make investment decisions, to make government policy decisions, and private investment or private funding decisions. So there's a lot to talk about. And since we've already introduced both of you, I would just want to say this is Douglas Gayeton and this is Doug Heske to my left and left. So one will be Douglas and one will be Doug. What I want to do is jump in and talk about this. Douglas, you've been working for several years on this approach. Take it away and let's look at the future.
I didn't know. I had an idea of what I was going to say, and then I decided to scrap it all today, and I took a walk around the block right before we started. and I was crossing Avenue of the Americas, and there was this cluster of people, and they waved me over. And I said, me? And they said, yeah, come over here. And I went over there, and they said, are you here in New York for this whole climate thing that they're doing? I said, yeah, kind of. Yeah, actually, I am. They're like, we've got this whole thing figured out. $5. I figured, my God, I'm going to get the solution to this thing $5. I don't go any more conferences, hear any more panels. That's pretty cheap. It's a great deal. Give them $5. They motion me to come close, and they say, carbon markets. I'm like, really? And they're like, yeah. I'm like, but isn't like carbon like a fraction of something? And you know, we have all these problems. We've got like desertification and biodiversity loss, and we've got erosion, and you're talking just about one thing. You know, I thought you were going to give me something bigger. And they said, oh, you want the big one? I said, yeah, I want that big one. And they're like, but I'm not going to give you another $5. They're like, no problem, no problem. They have me come close, and they go, ESG reporting. I'm like, oh man, it's kind of a bummer. I was afraid you were going to say that, because 7 years ago when I first heard that, I didn't get it. And I was really embarrassed. But now it turns out that everybody I ask doesn't know what it is either, so I feel less bad about that. And they said, oh, you're one of these guys that wants to have everything simple. I said, simple would be good. And they said, no, super simple. I'm like, that'd be really good. So they talk, and they were like, we're going to have to give it so simple that we're going to have to say it in 6 words for this guy. That's how simple it needs to be for him. I said, I would love that. And they gave me this piece of paper. They said, here's the 6 words. And it was on the paper, and I was like blown away. I'm like, this is incredible. And then I came here and started telling people what happened to me just now. And it turns out I'm not alone. I know you told me that you got one, right? You got a piece of paper. Right? I think you got one too, right? Do you have it? Can you tell us what it says?
Air, water, soil, biodiversity, equity, carbon.
Wow. Did yours say, Christoph, did yours say the same thing?
Yeah, water, soil.
You got one too, right? Did it say the same thing? Because that's kind of, I would almost call that a coincidence. Air, water, same thing. Yeah, it's really crazy, right? So they say that wisdom is longitudinal pattern recognition. Over time, you keep seeing the same things happening. For 5 years, the Lexicon has run an accelerator for good ideas funded by Google. And it's been an amazing journey. Everything from food as medicine to national dietary guidelines to food packaging to biodiversity. 1,000 companies and NGOs all working under NDA. We're finally going to be releasing this in January of 2024. It's called Green, Brown, Blue. The common denominator that all of those activators shared is that the world increasingly is less preoccupied with certifications and practices and more focused on the outcome. What happened as a result? Did I achieve impacts that I wanted? And crazily, it was these 6 words that kept on appearing again and again and again. So I went to Google, I said, crazy factoid. I don't know what you do with it, but all these activators, it ends up being the same thing. These 6 things are what they end up caring about the most. So then Google and I brought together food companies to Mountain View. Not one company could explain their ESG reporting in a way that fell outside of those 6 things. Not one. So we thought, that's a really interesting factoid. I'm going to impress somebody at dinner one night with that. And then Ripple came to me, and Ripple said, have you ever thought about taking this approach that you guys have with the Lexicon and applying it to carbon markets? We said, no, we couldn't do that because, you know, carbon's a fraction. And anybody who's a system thinker knows that if you just solve for a fraction, you're just creating unintended consequences somewhere else. And nobody's going to tell me that biodiversity loss is less important than climate change. Or water scarcity is less important than air quality. Because all of these things, some knucklehead is going to create a credit for in the next 5 years. And so what I said was, we should probably put together, you want to click ahead on the slide? Yeah, next one. And so we should probably say, why don't we focus on the things that matter most? Air, water, soil, biodiversity, equity, and carbon. That journey with Ripple was pretty interesting. We came to some really interesting conclusions. You can go to the next slide. We decided to then take it further and take this principle of ecological benefits and gathered all those guys who somehow kept quiet for 9 months. There's a lot of people in this room and didn't talk about it. So we could just figure out, because I would always say to them, it could end up being the most stupid idea in the world, so you don't want to let anybody know about this, so let's just keep it under the rug for right now. But can we create a framework for ecological benefits? Now, it's not a new idea what I'm going to talk about tonight. The software industry, mobile phone makers, made a very, very fundamental realization, is that phones need to talk to smart appliances. But a phone maker doesn't have to make a deal with every single appliance maker. That'd be insane. So they have Bluetooth. Why can't we create Bluetooth for the planet? Why can't we create a model that takes all of those paths that are different, but finally go in the same direction to the same destination? How hard would that be to do? And that's what the Ecological Benefits Framework is. This guy forced our hand. We didn't really want to talk about this tonight. I feel that we're maybe 6 months out. He forced us to make a website in order to be able to come to this event. But I'm going to give you a snapshot of the kinds of things this amazing group has been working on since January. It all started with this. Pacific Biochar, carbon credits sold to Microsoft. Microsoft was so compelled by this that they literally put out a press release saying, we bought these biochar credits mainly because of all the co-benefits associated with biochar, none of which we could qualify or quantify, so we actually had to put out a press release. We showed from a Pacific Biochar credit on the Carbon Future platform, if you had added in all the other ecological co-benefits, how you create a more three-dimensional model for how to look at it. From there, we showed how you can create digital wallets that are standardized across markets, how you could create ecological benefit bundle tokens that can look at data fidelity from self-reported across the range to certification, so that you don't have measurement being a barrier to entry. We have to start somewhere. To when you create things that go on the market, they can be unbundled. You can create derivative products. Next slide. And suddenly you can create a digital fingerprint to actually explain what people's activities are. And this is still in development. It's not live yet. But this team has done 24 case studies around the world, everything from ecoforestry projects in Sri Lanka to plastic removal projects in Indonesia to biodiversity projects in Colombia with Drea Burbank at Savimbo, my hero. But how do you explain that in a way that is visual, it's machine readable, it makes people more literate and fluent, and gives them a visibility without having to read a 300-page report in 9-point type of what it is that they're supporting. And I got so confused by people explaining to me how marketplaces work to fund this. You've educated me a lot in the last 3 months, thank you. That the team has built a tool that will come out in the next couple of weeks that actually explains how you finance ecological benefits. Whether you're a philanthropic family office or a pension fund, whether you're a sovereign. And it explains all the different purchasing decisions so that you can create a totally transparent transaction between a buyer, the project, and then the beneficiaries that come on the other side. It's an interactive tool. It'll be live. You can play it on your iPad. It'll be live in the next 3 weeks, and I'm super excited by that. So I'll leave it there, and I'll leave you with a simple question. It's a question I ask everybody that works in our team is, can you actually change the future? Thank you.
Thank you, Doug. So Douglas, I was a networking editor at a technology magazine back in the early 90s and covered the rise of Bluetooth. And I remember before then, everybody had their own cable. You had a cable for the printer, you had a cable for every damn thing you bought. How does the EBF bring all of that different information together and express it in a way that it becomes comparable and interchangeable? Can you summarize that? I know this is a deep question, but it's one that I think a lot of people are going to be interested to know.
The problem is that people aren't talking about the same things. And we are all siloed. And so we're never going to solve the problems that are facing us if we can't agree on the most basic thing, which is what are the impacts that we need to contribute to? Is there a way to define that every activity we do can positively put us one step closer to the solutions we seek? We don't have a framework for that right now. We have to start somewhere. I would argue that EBF is a very modest proposal that is going to take the localization and adaptation sector by sector. We've leaned into what Doug's going to talk about later today, because Doug is showing us how you take this and apply that to impact investing, for example.
Well, a lot of people would look to the various certifications and frameworks that are out there already, and ask how their validated positions are going to be integrated with one another. But nature itself is a thing we don't fully understand. In fact, we don't understand it very well at all. Are you creating an open space where all of this can continue to evolve as we increase our understanding?
Bluetooth doesn't tell you not to buy a Samsung phone. Bluetooth says that Samsung phone, if it has Bluetooth, is going to talk to every other smart device. EBF is not about saying this is the winner, this is the loser, this is the better way to measure something. It's simply saying, can we agree on a common framework so that when the buyer goes to buy something, they can see at a glance all of the ways to measure all the protocols that were used across these 6 benefits, and then they can make the educated decision of what they want to support. It could create a boon for people that create measurement, and especially people that are doing it in a place-based, ground-based way, because much of what EBF is about is flipping the script on Vera and others that have created a model that goes like this, and making a bottom-up model so that projects can explain themselves to most fully express the benefits that they're providing.
To meet nature where it is rather than where we start as bureaucrats.
Well, it's like people that are trying to create biodiversity credits and figuring out, like, is there a way to do a metric ton of biodiversity, right? This is the problems that we're facing, is that people don't understand that you have to localize these concepts and principles.
So Doug, as an investor seeking to bring together all of the insights that you need to make an informed decision about not simply the financial outcome, but the environmental outcome of an investment you're going to make, how are you going to use the EBF?
So I've been in the impact investment space for multiple decades, and what I'd share with you is that this is perhaps the most exciting project that we've ever been involved with. Douglas and I were first introduced to one another through a common friend who's highly respected by both of us, who's a marine biologist and now running an ocean organization in California by the name of ReefGen. And I went to Chris and I asked him the question, how we solve for some of the impact measurement problems that we were having, but also the impact storytelling. And he said, you need to talk to this guy. And he said, there is nobody that has a better command over how to convey impact and how to direct capital or get capital moving towards the right areas. And so Douglas and I spent a little bit of time with one another.
A little bit?
A little bit. And it's been interesting because I think we've known one another now for 5 or 6 months, and I feel like he is an incredible friend and has, he talks about the education that we've brought to his space, but I can't tell you what he's done for our team. And it's interesting because we have wrestled over the course of the last 12 months, given all of the skepticism and scrutiny that ESG has suffered from, what is an alternative framework? There's got to be something better than what exists today. And that's understandable, too, because ESG as a framework was never really designed to be used as an investment tool. It can be a good risk management tool, but that's where it ends. And so our work at Newday is very, very different than a lot of other impact organizations, particularly ones that are focused on the public investment space. Because everything that we're doing is really focused on markets-based solutions, as opposed to just investing in public companies. And we're going to talk more about that this evening as well, and the importance of that approach. as reflected in the work that we're doing in our oceans portfolio and program, and the work that we're doing with the Georgie Bedell Foundation as well.
Now, a lot of folks have been marching this week here in town, and there's a lot of talk about degrowth. Why is a market-based solution the right way to go about changing the way we use and reuse resources?
Yeah, so capital, as we all know, is an incredibly important tool. And our objective as an organization, I'm sure for all of your organizations as well, is to get capital moving in the right direction. But capital isn't the only tool, and it's one of the things that we have embraced since our inception, the importance of advocacy and engagement, especially with corporate organizations that have in large part been a major creator of the problems that we suffer from on a global level today. But from our perspective, there are three critical components to market-based solutions. It's grant capital, of which there's more than $500 billion given to nonprofits and NGOs every year. It's investment capital, and the global investment market is something like $125 trillion today. The private capital market is about 10% of that, or around 10 trillion. And I'm going to borrow something that we heard from a very good friend of ours, Philippe Cousteau, a number of months ago when we first started working with one another. And we were talking about grant capital, charitable giving, and everything. And we were talking about the size of the investment market. And Philippe, who was sitting there dependent through his organization at Earth Echo on charitable capital, and he said, wait a minute. He goes, I want a seat at that table. And that's why we began working with Earth Echo International, because even if we can take a very small percentage of whether it's the public investment market or $125 trillion or the private market and direct that in the right way, we can make an enormous change. But there's one other important component here, and that is consumer and institutional decision making. And so you can invest all the capital that you want in public organizations or even in private organizations, but unless you get people thinking differently about the impact that they have on climate change, on water resources, on ocean health, you're never going to make a bit of difference. And the challenge today, the paradox today, is that when you talk about climate action, individuals seldom are thinking about the impact that they have given their small climate footprint. But all of us today, we live in this world today where every single one of us has a major responsibility to do everything that we can. So we're going to talk a little bit about how this works today, particularly as it's associated with our oceans program, and how the model of EBF is used as an impact measurement tool and of equal importance, a storytelling tool to get everybody moving in the same direction. We're a small organization today. We're 9 people. We like to say that we swing a fairly significant bat given that size, but we do because we're collaborators. And we're working with organizations like Earth Echo International, the Jane Goodall Institute, Generation Unlimited, which is part of UNICEF, and the Georgie Bedell Foundation to drive this change. And why do we do that? Because there's nobody better that makes decisions around the on-the-ground work that's going on in the impact space than those organizations that are doing it every day.
So, Douglas, how would someone seeking some of that grant money that Doug mentioned a moment ago use the EBF? How do you envision their advertising the potential for change and connecting with funding?
I've learned a lot from the 24 case studies that we've done around the world, hearing people explain themselves, the challenges they have to explain themselves. You know, often it's a land tenure problem. They can't state that they actually own something, so there's all kinds of financial barriers to actually making a benefit payment. But also, they would like to measure things, but they don't know how. And I believe that the next wave is going to be something similar to the participatory guarantee system, where people on the ground work together to collaborate to figure out how to measure things in their communities. You know, so inspired, as I mentioned earlier, about Drea Burbank and her work, because I think people on the ground are going to come up with these place-based models. Grants, micro-grants, are going to give people the funding to figure out how to tell their story and measure it.
Again, I'm reminded of the transition we went through with digital technology. we talked amongst experts for decades, and then we had a lot of standards discussions, and then real technology burst on the scene, and we developed a shared language as a society. How do you see the EBF promulgating that shared language?
I don't think we have a shared language. I think we're data-driven on the quantitative side, and we've completely disregarded the qualitative side. And I think that we need to bring them both together and talk about qualitative and quantitative data in a way that's reciprocal.
Well, I think that's what happened over the course of the last 20 or 30 years, but only after the standards had been established in technology. But this is not such a rigid environment.
Yeah. Well, I think part of the challenge that I've always experienced is that people will hold off certifying or validating a certain methodology or practice because they want to have years and years of research. Which is certainly warranted, but I kind of think that this plane has run out of runway.
Well, to your point, at the grassroots level, you just have to jump in. You have to start to do something.
You have to start with self-reported, and you have to know that everybody's on a path of continuous improvement, and you have to meet them where they are, and the marketplace is going to become more savvy, and they're going to underwrite those first movers who, in the absence of an existing methodology or certification, created a methodology themselves. And then the marketplace, once you have a way to show all of those, the marketplace is going to have people recognizing that in Colombia or in Bolivia, there's 20,000 native communities that are measuring something that they're doing themselves, and that's a business opportunity for somebody to go in and create a business around it, right?
Absolutely.
And that's what the participatory guarantee system is, an interesting model to think about. We need to rethink all of these top-down systems we have because they're only serving people who pollute, who want to feel less bad about doing bad. We have to have a completely different model that's more bottom-up.
So, Doug, how do you envision that bottom-up emergence of a shared consumer awareness that creates the total transformation of society? Does it happen because of the investments we make, or does it happen through the storytelling that we perform about the investments we make?
It happens as a result of the combination amongst all three of those things that we were talking about. Grant capital, investment capital, advocacy and engagement tied to consumer and institutional decision-making. And so I think it's important to go into an example because a lot of this is obviously theoretical. And it took me a little while to get my arms around everything that Douglas and his incredible team of people that were building this. And when Douglas first started to share some of the work that they've done, I was like, how the hell is this guy doing this, right? Like, this is an enormous feat. And then I began to meet other people of the team, and I understood very quickly around the resource base that was contributing to this effort. So I'd like to tell you a story, okay? And this story is related specifically to one of our impact initiatives. And so we, as an impact investing organization, historically have focused on really 5, 6 impact themes. And they've been climate action, ocean health, clean water, diversity, equity, and inclusion, biodiversity, and conservation. This story has to do more with the 6 foundational pillars of EBF. And as Douglas had explained, the work that's going on relative to this program touches all of those. So these two fellas up here, Will and Bill, those mischievous little creatures called krill, operate in the Southern Ocean. They are a foundational food source for everything that goes on in the Southern Ocean surrounding Antarctica. Douglas said to me today, I'm going to use this because I thought that it was really impressive. There's 70 trillion of them in the ocean today. They are one of the most important carbon sinks on the planet today. And you know what we're doing? We're eating them. We're crushing them up. We're squeezing them for their oil, very valuable super omega-3 oils that are used in a variety of different institutional processes. For supercharged omega-3s that are consumed mostly in the United States in the form of nutraceuticals, for livestock feed, for aquaculture feed, for pet food. The challenge is that the krill population today, Will, Bill, and their entire family are under attack. And they're under attack as it relates to what's going on related to climate change, but also as it relates to the overharvesting for those numerous areas that are used for humans and for livestock and aquaculture. And so I want to talk a little bit about the program that we're embracing in here, our partners on the program, and why this becomes so important. So we have, for the last 3 to 4 years, been working very closely with Philippe and Ashlyn Cousteau and Earth Echo International, which are an ocean health organization that are building the youth leaders for tomorrow. We built our ocean portfolio a number of years ago that were focused on a wide variety of impact efforts associated with ocean health. So it was ocean acidification, ocean plastics, coastal resiliency, the health of the Southern Ocean. And in sitting down with Philippe and Ashlyn, we asked them the question, where can we make an immediate difference, and how do we build an impact around this program that makes a meaningful difference? And what we all decided together, in combination with a number of other really important organizations like Cambler and ASOC and Antarctic 2020 and a variety of others, that this is an area we could make a difference. So, and this is where EBF comes into play in the work of the Lexicon. So we have shifted our ocean portfolio to focus on those core areas that are pertaining to the work that we're doing in ocean health. The health of the Southern Ocean, the krill population, coastal resiliency, and a variety of other things. But this is much more than an investment portfolio that we're raising funds in, both as a separately managed account and an exchange-traded fund. But it's a comprehensive program that is being run with those aforementioned organizations to drive change. And over the course of the coming months, we're working directly with Douglas and his team to engage the entire network of people that participate in this effort. And in early 2024, we will be formally launching the campaign, which will run for a period of 3 to 5 years to address, number one, the consumption of nutraceuticals. Number two, how krill and super omega-3s are used in the production of livestock feed, aquaculture, and pet food. And we're doing this in a variety of different ways. First and foremost, we are not an activist manager, but we're a manager, an investment manager that advocates for change. So we are already in the process of reaching out to a number of major organizations that are public companies that are distributors of krill-based nutraceuticals. The best news is that there's a replacement. And that replacement is algae-based nutraceuticals. This all seems somewhat crazy because krill only produce super omega-3s because they consume so much algae. But organizations like Iwi Life and Silva, which is one of the organizations that this Cousteau organization is running and supporting, are natural replacements. And we know that they can fill the demand gap. So that's number one. Part of this is about building a presence with consumers so that they change behavior. So in 2024, there will be a major advocacy campaign that is tied into the work that we're doing in addressing consumer behavior. And there's a long list of other tactics that we are going to be pursuing over the course of the next 5 years to advance this. There's another super important part of this, and it ties in directly to the work that's going on by ASAC and Cambler and a number of others in the Southern Ocean, and that is marine protected areas and the creation of new marine protected areas, which we are advocating for as well.
Now, you're also going to make a film, and I'm looking forward to the feature film and the Will and Bill Stuffies.
Well, to be fair, we're not making the film, but we are engaged with an organization that is producing the film out of Denmark called Scenery.
I'm telling you, Will and Bill Stuffies are going to be the thing, as long as they're made with renewable materials.
It almost makes you want to have one as a pet, doesn't it?
storytelling always requires a subject, and I think we have a fantastic example of that here in the room, and I want to move to that part of the conversation now. Let's invite up Georgie Bedell. And thank you, Douglas and Doug. You'll be coming back in a few minutes.
Great. Thank you, Mitch.
Georgie, please join us. Thank you so much for joining us. Georgie, your work is so inspiring. You showed me how one person can really make a huge difference. Your foundation has helped more than 350,000 people in Burkina Faso with new wells and community centers that provide clean water, sanitation, and study areas and community gardens for all of these people. Tell us about the work and how you got involved in it in the first place, because I think that your origin story is so inspiring.
Thank you, Mitch. Good evening. I didn't hear you. Maybe we should do it in my dialect, which is Grunzi. When I say aïe buen, you just have to repeat aïe buen.
Aïe buen.
There we go. Now we can start. I have to say I'm so grateful to be here. Thank you so much for having me, and thank you, Doug Heske, for what you do, for believing in an organization like GBF. I'm very humble and honored to be here. How did I start the Georgie Bedell Foundation, Mitch? So I started GBF in 2015. I started the organization not because I wanted to be another founder of an organization. Is number one. As a young girl, I used to walk 3 hours to fetch water with my grandmother and my cousin girls. Fetching water wasn't something that I liked because I'm not a morning person. So every morning, my grandmother will come and knock at the door at 6 a.m. Georgie, let's go get the water. And to me, it was a big no. One of my cousins reminded me, he said, you used to actually go behind the house, you would sit there, you would cry for a good hour to wake the whole village up. And so I was blessed to become Miss Burkina Faso in 2003, following that Miss Africa in 2004. After that, I had the opportunity to go to Paris to start an international modeling career. I have to say that living in Paris was amazing. I didn't have no issue of water. I could have...
And it went pretty well, too, didn't it?
Yes, absolutely. Every night I could take a bubble bath anytime. Until in 2009, my sister was having a baby. I was so excited. I want to go back home to welcome the baby. Unfortunately, my sister, that is privileged, I have to watch her wake up between 2 a.m. and 4 a.m. To get water. That changed my life. That changed my life because I couldn't understand that a pregnant woman who is ready to give life have to do that. So when I came back to New York, I co-founded an organization called Models for Water with a friend. And what we were basically doing with Models for Water, 100% of the funds we were raising, we will give it to other organizations to build wells in Africa. Some of them were based in Burkina Faso. But unfortunately, none of these organizations were working in my grandmother's village. And God bless my grandmother. When I taught her what I started to do, she said, oh, don't force this organization to come and work in our village as long as other people have water. Very humble, very kind woman. A few years later, my friend decided to stop the organization. God bless Heidi, she's from Boca in Florida. So access to water wasn't something that she loved it. Helping was something that she loved, but she didn't feel like she wanted to continue. I understood. because we were on the peak of our modeling career. So we couldn't do it. So I was hurt. I said, you know what? Let me share my childhood story through a children's book. Have you ever heard of The Water Princess? The Water Princess? Yeah? Okay. It's me. It's based on my childhood story. So I said, okay, let me give 100% of the book deal to another organization to basically build the first well in my grandmother's village, and I was super excited. And the funds was also enough for that organization to build even 3 wells if they want. They took the money, they went to my grandmother's village, and they came back with the excuse of, we don't know how they will take care of the well, we don't know how they will maintain the well, so we are going to build the well somewhere else. I was completely heartbroken because I felt that I'm not someone important, right? Meaning that I don't work with the government, and if I don't stand up for the people of my village, nobody would basically do it. So they went in and built the well completely somewhere else. I was mad, and I started the Georgie Badil Foundation.
Well, and you know, more than 2/3 of the people who have to deal with the lack of water are women or young women. And you did much more than free them from that. You also gave them training. The women of these villages are building and managing the wells and the community center. How has that changed the opportunities where these installations have been put?
I will follow up with the story. So when that organization built that well somewhere else with the excuse of, we don't know how they will take care of the well, when that specific well was broken, guess who they call? They call me. That well is broken, exactly. But I wasn't supposed to be the one maintaining it, right? So one thing that I realized is that Burkina Faso have over 9,000 broken wells. Open your ear, 9,000 broken wells. These wells were built by amazing organizations that we all love, that we all support, but unfortunately, no one thought of giving the basic knowledge to this community to fix and maintain these wells. And that is exactly what happened with my well. They came with the excuse, we don't know how my community will take care of, making me think that there is a sense of responsibility out there for them. But unfortunately, I was called. So when I started GBF, I would go to so many villages and I would see a well. I asked women, so you have a well, where do you go get your water? They would tell me we walk 2 hours, 3 hours away from our village to fetch water. So I couldn't comprehend. I was like, okay, you already have a well. Why don't you fix this one? The answer was like, we don't know how. I said, that's easy. Building wells is engineering. We are going to break that down to your level of education and teach you that. So I gathered GBF engineers who broke the curriculum, and now we teach. We have on our circle, we have 278 women that we taught basic engineering to learn how to fix these wells.
Absolutely. And you've also shared with me that once the women in the community have this skill, that they also develop other opportunities, that they have a little cash in their pocket, amongst other things, and that drives women-owned business. So in a sense, this creates an efflorescence of feminine economic activity that didn't exist in Africa before. Now, you also shared that repairing all the wells in Burkina Faso would cost only $10 million. How can you use the EBF, the Ecological Benefits Framework, to express that need and quantify it for all of us so that we can get that $10 million and solve that problem?
Mitch, we have to say that, okay, economic power is very important for this community, specifically for this woman. One thing that I wanted to add is that GBF is an impact organization. Right. I founded this organization because I felt that there were a sense of injustice made to these communities, made to these people. Mm-hmm. So now, the women we train, we actually hire them. There is a gang of models, cycle women. We give them models, and they go around to monitor, evaluate this wealth so that water is uninterrupted in these communities. Now, with what we are doing with Newday, imagine 63% of the rural population in Burkina Faso don't have access to clean water. And these 9,000 broken wells are located in rural Burkina Faso where we work. Imagine if we fix them, if we get to raise the necessary funds to fix these over 9,000 broken wells. The impact we are going to make, because I have to say one thing, Burkinabe are not lazy people. We are one of the hardest workers in Africa. The proof is that we're the second producer of cotton in West Africa with our water. That is with our water. We feed West Africa with all of the vegetables we produce. So now with water, imagine the impact, imagine the difference we are going to make.
And you could give 10 million people that clean water for $10 million. I have never heard a simpler argument for action. And I want to thank you for all the action that you have taken, rather than sitting back and letting it happen to everyone. Thank you very much for joining us.
No, thank you, Mitch. Thank you for having me. What an honor. And bravo, Doug. I am so proud of you. Thank you.
Thanks. Now, we want to bring up Matt Zimmer, and I'm going to have to actually read a little bit here because I want to get his bio right. Matt is Newday Impact's Director of Governance Research and Co-Portfolio Manager, and he's going to lead the application of the EBF in Newday's investment process. As a principal at the E-Standards Forum, he managed data programs for monitoring country compliance with international financial standards. And in addition to that financial work, he spent several years on the ground as a Peace Corps volunteer in Ukraine, a country which is, of course, always in our thoughts and prayers today. Matt, how is Newday Impact going to use the EBF in your work?
Great. Thanks, Mitch. We're using the Ecological Benefits Framework as part of a 5-step process that incorporates both quantitative and qualitative analysis to select securities and construct our thematically aligned portfolios. So in the first step, we take a universe of approximately 5,000 domestic and international companies and use a quantitative screen based on a set of key performance indicators, KPIs, which assess a company's alignment with a specific topic, such as ocean health, to identify companies that are broadly compatible with our investment theme. So having identified a subset of companies that fit into our overall investment theme, we then apply a quantitative macro screen that analyzes how attractive each of those companies look in the current stage of the business cycle. So as a third step, then we take into consideration a company's financial return potential by analyzing, among other factors, earnings expectations, earnings quality, and profitability. So after completing those first 3 steps, we have a set of candidates for inclusion in our portfolio that are both broadly aligned with our investment theme and that we believe have a good return potential based on the current macro environment and the company's fundamental financial data. So in the next step, we perform a qualitative analysis of each of the candidates across the 6 pillars of the Ecological Benefits Framework. The EBF pillars give us a lens to analyze companies that allows us to go beyond the box ticking that is often associated with traditional ESG scores.
Let me ask about that, because that is the problem that we face. There's a lot of just greenwashing, box ticking going on. How do you envision discussing the trade-offs between the various benefits that may exist in a project or in a company's future efforts? We, as Douglas pointed out, over-index on carbon all the time. And so we hear, we can build a circular economy. Just ignore the fact that the carbon footprint doesn't actually work out. How are you going to use the EBF as a foundation for that kind of a judgment call?
Well, companies often have limited disclosures about their ESG performance, and they usually only give us what's the minimum regulatory requirements. So by analyzing companies along the EBF framework, we're able to see which companies have genuine impact.
Okay, so will you do that analysis, or will you ask them to do that EBF model for you as part of the process of doing the review?
This would actually be something that we would be doing ourselves. I hope that someday companies will begin reporting more fulsomely around this EBF framework, but right now what we would be doing is looking at the companies and teasing out that information from various publicly available sources.
So do you think that it would be worthwhile to publish your findings so that the EBF becomes the basis for that more fulsome reporting that you're describing?
Absolutely. We're developing EBF profiles for each of the constituent companies in our universe of investment choices. And what we're doing is we're looking at those EBF profiles and analyzing which of those have genuine impact.
Great. Now, you weren't quite through your 5 topics, so please, I interrupted.
That's okay. So using a variety of information sources, we develop these EBF profiles, and then using those profiles, we select the 20 to 30 companies that have demonstrated genuine positive impacts across the 6 pillars of the EBF. So using this multifactorial process in conjunction with the pillars of the EBF allows us to create a portfolio aligned with our investment theme that has a compelling financial return potential and consists of companies that have a genuine positive impact.
So let's use the example of the Ocean Health Fund. How is that started? How is the use of the EBF, or your awareness of, since of course we're launching it today, how has that started to change the decision-making within the organization around the Ahoy ETF?
Well, it allows us to go a little bit deeper and look at the companies in more of a broader way, to look at the actual impacts and to look qualitatively at what the companies are actually doing rather than just what is being shown on a ESG score.
What do you imagine the benefit to your investors will be? Are they going to have a deeper understanding of the companies that they have their money in? Or is it simply they're going to be happier with their returns because you have a better view?
Well, I think by providing these EBF profiles, we'll be able to show the investors what the companies are actually doing and to show what authentic impact they're having. It also helps us better select the companies because we're being able to choose the companies that have the greater disclosure.
Well, Matt, I think this sounds like a great application of the idea. Any final thoughts that you want to share with us before we close out this part?
Well, I'd like to bring Doug back up so that he can give us an important announcement about our ocean health program.
Ahoy, Doug. Ahoy.
Matt, thank you very much. So there are a couple of other things that I'd like to share. First and foremost, I want to talk about just very quickly here about the impact reporting piece, because it's something that we've tried to figure out for 5 years. And I may have said this earlier, but one of the things that we've tried to understand is how do we deliver impact data? How do we tell the story about the incredible work that Georgie Bedell is doing or the Cousteaus are doing, and it not feeling like a homework assignment? And so we designed this impact report a couple years ago. We were trying to equate the water work that we were doing, and the water work as it tied into GBF, with swimming pools of water, right? which seems like kind of a cockamamie idea right now. Because I was asking myself, well, if you report that Georgie Bedell produced, 30,000 swimming pools of water or something, does that mean anything more than how we were currently reporting it? And I wish we had time to do this, but there's some work that Douglas and team have done around the storytelling piece of this that's absolutely fascinating and super impressive. So we're looking forward to doing that kind of reporting on a go-forward basis. I want to close with a couple of things. I don't like the narrative we're living in today. I've got 3 kids at home, and they look at me every day, and they ask the question, what the hell we're doing? And whether it's species extinction, climate change, global warming, social unrest, it's overwhelming. It's overwhelming. You turn on the news, you open up the newspaper, and I ask myself every day when I get up, what the hell are we doing about it? And what we need is more Georgie Bedells, more Douglas Gayetons and his team, more Philippe and Ashlyn Cousteaus that are doing this work, and we need to help them. We need to help them get to the goals that they want to accomplish. And we need to get everybody moving together and collaborating to take action on this. This is not impossible. Douglas asked the question, can we change the future? You're damn right we can, but not in the way that we're doing it today. So we need to activate behind all of this. Matt had referenced that we had an important announcement relative to our oceans program, and we do. So just this last week, we received official word from Schmidt Marine Technology Partners. Many of you know Eric Schmidt ran Google and Alphabet for a long period of time and is one of the most respected organizations, ocean organizations in the world today, that they are funding our oceans program. And we couldn't be any more excited about that because it gives us the momentum, the catalyst that we need to go to a very long list of other foundations and families and institutions to take this effort forward. So this is all work that we can all be doing. It's all work that we need to be doing. And I want to thank all of you for spending the time with us here tonight. But when you go home tonight, when you go back to your hotel rooms, don't forget about this, right? Because what we always say is that if we go and talk to people about the work that we're doing collectively, and everybody that's here is a part of Newday and the EBF team, that if people leave and say, well, that was interesting, then we failed, okay? So we have to do more than that. There is one more thing. We run a set of investment portfolios today that are important portfolios around those 6 pillars that we were talking about earlier. I had a conversation with Douglas when I first met him, and I asked him, is it important that we have these individual portfolios? And he turned to me and said, nature doesn't parse these out, why would you? So as a result of that conversation, we are in the final stages of building what is a new multi-asset class vehicle that we will deliver in the first quarter of 2024 called the Newday Impact 1 Fund. And we're taking a substantial portion of revenues from that fund, 15%, and contributing that back to EBF so that they can continue to the work that they're doing on a go-forward basis. We want this to be foundational. We want this to be a catalyst for raising a lot of additional capital to expand this effort, not just domestically, but globally over the next couple of years. So I want to thank Douglas, all of your team members here who truly have been extraordinary. This is, by the way, this is not just work that's gone on for the last couple of months, but it's gone on for years. And I think it's, when you look at the output of what these guys have accomplished, it's a real testament to that. Mitch, thank you for all the work that you're doing at Earth911.
Thank you.
Truly impressive. And to all of our partners, Georgie and everybody that's been a part of this important event, thank you for coming tonight.
Let me just close off with one thing. You know, is this going to be a moment that you'll be able to say someday, you were here? You'll answer that question for yourself by joining and participating and backing this effort and contributing as you can. And you can start by going to canyouchangethefuture.org and sign up so you'll be part of this movement. And don't just stop with signing up. Share this with your friends. This can happen, but only if we make it. Our future is out there, and we can only get there together. Thank you all. That was a presentation of the new Ecological Benefits Framework at Climate Week in New York. The tools and methodologies you heard about will be emerging in waves over the next year, and we'll keep you up to date as the project becomes a movement. You can visit canyouchangethefuture.org. Can You Change the Future is all one word, no space, no dash, canyouchangethefuture.org. And sign up for the newsletter updates there to track where the EBF will change your ability to make an informed decision. I hope you'll take a moment to share this podcast or any of the more than 420 other interviews we've done on sustainability in your ear with your friends, family, your coworkers. Tell your boss the fact about the EBF. Writing review on your favorite podcast platform will help your neighbors find us. Folks, you're the amplifiers that help us spread more ideas to create less waste. Everyone can find us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, iHeartRadio, Audible, or any of the other places that you enjoy listening to podcasts. Thanks, folks, for your support. I'm Mitch Ratcliffe. This is Earth911, and we will be back with another innovator interview soon. In the meantime, folks, take care of yourself, take care of one another, and let's all take care of this beautiful planet of ours. Have a green day.